Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday. Bright, sunny, humid Friday in which every single man in my neighborhood has decided simultaneously to become Handyman Mick Henderson. So the neighborhood is full of noise, leaf blowers, hoses to blast the sidings of houses and clean them, lawn mowers, you name it. I'm presuming that all these little busybodies will knock this off at the end of the day and that the weekend will be quiet. But it's nevertheless the end of the week. It's the end of a rather trying week for me. I don't mind admitting something that I'm not sorry to see this week go. But Friday is when booktubers, sometimes a lot of them, make a progress report of some kind or another. A Friday Reads video. It starts the barrage of such gauge-taking videos that happen on Friday or on the weekends or on Monday. I love them. Absolutely love them. It's like checking in with friends. And I thought I would do one myself today, right now, for some of the books that I am reading or have read or will be reading. I don't know how many. Now I'm forgetting what I put on this list. This is not everything by a long shot. This is about a quarter. But I don't want the video to go on forever, so I don't remember off the top of my head what's on this list for what, in terms of what I've read or what I'm going to read or whatnot. So we'll just look at the list, talk about books a little. There's never any bad reason to do that. All right. Well, the first one is The Claverings by Anthony Trollope, which I am rereading, of course, because I am reading it to you. I'm reading the book to you with editorial commentary, and I'm having a blast already, and we've just barely started with the book, which has lots and lots of stuff in it. It has a lot more pathos in it than Mr. Scarborough's Family, the last Trollope that we read out loud. Mr. Scarborough's Family, seen broadly, is comedy of a kind, but it largely never strays from comedy, whereas The Claverings does. So that's going to be a lot of fun to read those new registers. So that definitely is on the list. Then we have Nicholas Blake. I found this. Minute for Murder. Look at that. He had it coming to him. Look at that. I found this at the Brattle Bookshop. Just a cheap little mass market paperback. And I wasn't really clear whether or not I'd read any Nicholas Blake. I'm pretty sure that I have. Surely I have. I don't think I'd ever read this book before. This is a Strange Ways book, and I loved it. Just loved it. I mean, when you're reading a murder mystery, that's basically what this is a murder mystery. When you're reading a murder mystery, there are all sorts of reasons why you can read it. There are all sorts of reasons why you can go back to an author. It isn't necessarily the quality of their prose. When it comes to murder mysteries, it can be the intricacy of the plots, or the skill of the reveals, the skill of the red herrings and the reveals. You can read those and love them, even though there's precious little in the way of genuine literary atmosphere involved. Freeman Wills Croft, for instance, has nothing of anything. He is just intricacy of plotting. That's all he has. He is an unbelievably boring writer. And yet he had a flourishing career, and I myself have read 5 or 6 of his books, and will probably read others. So it's always an extra pleasure to me, a little bit of a surprise and an extra pleasure when a book is so well written. It's so wonderfully, playfully well written and erudite as this book is. I loved it. Just loved it. Unfortunately, the mass market paperback did not survive the read, but that immediately sent me on to another one, to The Beast Must Die, which is a very different thing. The intelligence and the literariness was the same, but it was a very different book from Minute for Murder in terms, at least I thought so, in terms of atmosphere. And yet successful, equally successful. Really made me a fan of this author. So I'll be reading a lot more of this author, and I will be looking for this author. So I am involved now in yet another crime series, and yet another author I will be reading from stem to stern. Then I reread Robert McCammon's The Wolf Hour. The Wolf's Hour is a story of a Russian-born operative in World War II who is a werewolf. Only with him, it's more of a Marvel superpower than it is an affliction. He can transform at will, and I reread this because I'm doing a buddy read of it with Randy Ray from the Literary Texan, and I was curious to know. I've read this a couple of times. I was curious to know this third time what would jump out at me, and it was there was one negative thing that jumped out at me and one positive thing. The negative thing was the prose is a lot more purple than I remembered. And I know that could be done in fun. I know that could be Robert McCammon just having fun. And if that's true, more power to him. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for purple prose since I haven't been reading a lot of it lately. But the positive thing was that McCammon never loses sight of the fact that Gallatin, that his main character, does not just stop being a werewolf when he's in human form. He exists. He really does exist in a space in between. He's not human, and I loved how that is all throughout this book. It's not. I mean, at a couple of plot points, especially, of course, the famous. Not famous. I don't know how famous this book is, but there's a very standout moment at the end, actually at the climax of the book, where his ability to turn into a giant wolf. The plot hinges on it. The plot's resolution hinges on it. There are things like that, big moments like that, but he has a lot of lupine qualities anyway, even when he looks human as anybody else. I really like that. I thought that was very subtly done. Then we have Nero Wolfe. This is the second confession. That moderately overweight man looking at those two documents on the cover is supposed to be the incredibly obese Nero Wolfe. This goes to show you, the covers of all these old Nero Wolfe novels show a man that we wouldn't look at twice on the street in our incredibly obese America. And same thing with the film adaptations. The TV adaptation with Maury Chaykin, the film adaptations that I recently found on YouTube. A pilot, I guess it was unbought. It was an unbought pilot of a Nero Wolfe TV series, in which the actor who plays Nero Wolfe is maybe a little chubby. Maybe that he certainly is not noticeably, arrestingly overweight. Certainly is not. And of course, with that pilot, I found it on YouTube, and it's free, so you can find it too. Naturally, I was overjoyed that the part of Archie Goodwin, Nero Wolfe's young, handsome man about business. Wolfe barely ever moves. He can't drive a car or seduce a woman or hold a gun to somebody or slap somebody or punch somebody. He can't, but he needs that to be done. Often he needs that to be done. So Archie Goodwin lives with him and is that for him. He is just, they have a working relationship and a friendship. In a way, they respect each other. But Archie Goodwin is Nero Wolfe's own Sam Spade. And in that unsold pilot, I was overjoyed to see Archie Goodwin being played by a very young William Shatner. Perfect casting, just perfect. And this is the second confession. I'm rereading all the Nero Wolfe books, and in effect, with a lot of cases, not with the last one, but with this one, I'm effectively reading it for the first time. I knew I burned through all of these when they came out as uniform mass market paperbacks in the 90s, but I barely remembered any of this. I remembered one aspect of this story, actually the culminating aspect, the thing that would be a spoiler if I revealed it to you. Let's just say there are two confessions in this book. And Rex Stout uses an absolutely sublime bit of psychological manipulation to make sure that if you're reading this the first time, to make sure that you don't guess the secret of the second confession. I knew it was coming because it's pretty much the only thing in this book that I remembered. That, and also there's a bit of action that happens at a bubbling brook, and it's just not believable. I don't. Sometimes I think that Rex Stout was as housebound as Nero Wolfe. The bit of there is just not believable, and the whole story turns on it. But I loved it. Of course, I loved it, and I will move on. This book continues once again. This has now been 3 times. The nefarious appearance on the phone of Mr. X is what Wolfe insists that Archie call him. He's extremely articulate. He's extremely dangerous. He is clearly being built up to be Wolfe's Moriarty. And I think I remember how that comes out, but it doesn't happen in this book. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the thing. Then this next one that I read, this is a new book. This is Brian Burrow. This is The Gunfighters. This is coming out in June. It is the perfect nonfiction release for June on the Range. Michael K. Vaughan's event about Western novels. This is all about the reality behind those novels. It's about why we think of the Wild West the way we do. And how wild was it? And who were the people involved not only in making it wild, but in starting to make it tame? Who were those people and what were their stories? And oh my God, this is so good. I will treat it properly. I will do a review of it, and I'll probably discuss it at more length on this channel. But Brian Burrow does a great job. You should definitely, either, if you're a little flush for money, pre-order this book, if you're interested in the Wild West, if you're going to take part in June on the Range, or you should definitely badger your library to get a copy, maybe more than one copy. Either one is going to work out to the author's credit. Just remember a little bit of procedure here for all of you out there who are listening. If you buy this book and you read it and you like it, remember to leave a review of it on Goodreads or on Amazon, especially on Amazon. It doesn't have to be a Steve review. It doesn't have to cite the last 6 books on the subject. It doesn't have to go into chapter and verse. But you going to Amazon when you're finished with it and saying, that was wonderful, and maybe mentioning just one quality that you really liked about it, that goes a long way. That goes a long way for an author. Even a mainstream published author. A long way. But, oh my God, I loved it. I loved it so much. Okay, then we have something for the gays, also a romance. Got to have something for the gays. This is by an author. I didn't notice this. Atreus Rosewood. Okay, if that's your real name, I'm the czar of all the Russias. But going by that name, this is Rust and Stardust. It is a Sagebrush Cowboys story. This is book 1 in, I guess, what is the series? This was put in front of my nose by Kindle Unlimited. I pay for Kindle Unlimited, which is basically a better version of visiting the library. You can borrow ebooks. You can have as many out as you want, or you can have up to, I think, 20 out at a time. You can have them out for as long as you want. But once you've hit your limit, you need to return one in order to borrow a new one. So you can't just impulsively hit, oh, I'll take that for Kindle Unlimited if you're butting against your limit. And Kindle Unlimited also uses Amazon's algorithm to suggest things to you that you might like based on the things you've already picked for Kindle Unlimited. I love it. I think it's worth twice what Amazon charges for it. And I think this was suggested to me for that. This is Rust and Stardust. And believe it or not, it is a Western romance. It is a contemporary romance. It is as gay as a morning in May. It's a young man from the city whose job it is to go to the country, the authentic spur-wearing Levi's and denim country, for a reason, for a specific reason. He is to go there, make nice with the locals, and poach a barbecue recipe. Poach as many really great barbecue recipes as he can for a product line that he works for. So he goes to a small town and he meets a gorgeous guy who is, among his many other attributes, and believe you me, it isn't long in this book before we start seeing some of his other attributes. Among all those other attributes, he has created a great barbecue recipe. So he becomes the object of interest for the other character in more ways than one. I know, all the puns are coming to my mind too. But I thought this was heartfelt. I thought it was well done. I don't know that I would ever revisit. What's it called again? Sagebrush Cowboys? I don't know I would ever revisit it, but I thought it was fairly well done. I was never let down, as it were. I thought it wasn't, I mean, when it tries to be clever, oh my God, those are the worst parts. But when it's heartfelt, I thought it was quite good. Because each one represents something that the other has never met. The young man who has the barbecue recipe has never left his little town. Doesn't know anything about the outside world. And the young man who is intent on poaching the barbecue recipe knows nothing about the realities of the country either. So that was neat and that was well done. Then we have a book that I just recently got the advanced copy on this channel. I could not resist reading it. It's Adam Nicholson's book, Bird School, which is ostensibly a birding book. It's about, going and seeing birds, filling out your life list, meeting other birders. I loved it. I just loved it. This is so good. Again, I will do a full dress formal review of it and whatnot. I will probably talk about it again on this channel. But to put it mildly, if you are a birder, if you are a bird watcher or a bird enthusiast of any kind, you have got to read this book. So far this year, in the mainstream American press, there have been 5 or 6 books on birding, and I know there are 5 or 6 more at least coming out on some aspect of noticing birds or living with birds or whatnot. I'm talking apart from scientific books, apart from natural histories, human interacting with birds. There have been a few so far. This is so handily better than all the rest of them. I loved it. Just loved it. Then we have, I got on a little bit of a kick, and I'm not sure that I'm over with it. I may continue with it. It was prompted by a book that I bought when David Murphy and I were overdosing on used book buying last week, but it has continued since then. I reread Joachim Fest's book on Hitler, his biography of Hitler. This was an early biography. This is, and it directly activates that part of the reading mind that I rail against all the time, where we think that if you're going to get a biography of someone or a history of some subject, it should be the latest thing, and that the latest thing somehow invalidates all the earlier things. Now, every once in a while, that will be true, in at least an informational sense. Every once in a while, something like an opening of Soviet archives will happen, where you're writing on a subject that's directly involved in that, and the archives have material that will fundamentally change what you write. Sometimes that will be true. It's not true in the case of Hitler, or the rise and fall of Nazi Germany. It's largely not true. And so, I have heard people say, when I worked in a bookstore, people would say, well, I want to read a biography of Columbus. What's the latest one? And I would say, well, you don't necessarily have to have the latest one. You might want the best one. And boy, oh boy, was I impressed by this. More so than I was impressed. It impressed the hell out of me the first time I read it. But I was even more impressed this time around. Fest doesn't talk about himself much in this book. I think I caught 2 sentences that even remotely allude to himself. But he had a ringside seat for all of this, and was one of the first people to try to do a full-dress English language biography. Or he wrote it in German, but a full-dress biography for a popular audience of this creature, of this person. I loved it. The second time around, I loved it, and I was spurred to do it by a reread of John Toland's book Infamy about Pearl Harbor, which, again, I have actually had bookstore customers tell me, I'm looking for a book on Pearl Harbor. What's the latest one? And aside from spy decrypts or things like that, Infamy was wonderful, is what the long and short of what I'm trying to say, is that this book was wonderful. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And when I finished with it, I thought, well, okay, you're reading decades-old stuff on World War II, even though World War II is a booming industry. So why don't you read Fest's book again? And I did, and I think I'm not done. I think I want to read a whole bunch of older World War II works. But this is about the attack on Pearl Harbor. There's all sorts of theorizing going on here, and of course that theorizing was taken to much greater lengths later, after John Toland wrote this book. But in terms of a skillful narrative, a minute-by-minute action, in terms of drawing characters, Fest is great at that too. His upper-ups in the Nazi regime, they're such hateful, scathing, but knowing character portraits. And the same thing here. I loved it. So we're talking mostly a good reading week. I don't know, maybe I'm leaving out a lot of the negative stuff. A lot of the negative stuff was for pay. So I'm trying to forget that it ever happened. But I'm, in addition to now the Strangeway books and also the Nero Wolfe books, I am reading the Lou Archer novels I am reading the Lou Archer novels, but I'm reading Mickey Spillane, the Mike Hammer books. And I just this week reread one of his most famous. This is Kiss Me Deadly. I think this and I, the Jury are probably his 2 most famous books. And this is the one where his main character picks up a dame, a long, cool drink of water. And when he next wakes up, his car is in a ditch and she's dead. And the authorities, they take his gun. They tell him, you are definitely a person of interest. Don't get wise. Don't leave the state. But he knows that something else he's on a vengeance quest of his own. Once that happens, he's on a vengeance quest of his own. Literally disarmed in every sense of the word. And I really liked it. I know that Mickey Spillane is not good. These books are not good. Even Kiss Me Deadly has a little more narrative oomph than the last 2 that I've read, but even so, it's not good. To mention it in the same breath with Rex Stout, much less the Strangeway books, much less the Lou Archer books. It's the mongrel of the litter, but still, it's all action. It's all action and dialogue. So this is like the 3rd time I've read Kiss Me Deadly. I think I'll read I, the Jury next. Okay, then we have a new biography. I don't know if this is out yet. This is by Edward Luce, and this is Zbig. This is his big biography of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the foreign policy wonk for President Carter, but also was the behind-the-scenes foreign policy wonk for a lot of people for a long time in Washington. He's had one other biographical treatment at length that I have read that got bashed in limited corners of the critical world. It got bashed for overpraising him. I didn't know what to make of that because I watched him carefully when he was in office. I watched this whole thing. I was trying to assess what kind of a position he was exercising behind the scenes, even when he was exercising it. At the time, I thought, well, it's profound, and I don't like that much influence being held in the hands of one person. But at least it's not out openly nefarious like the influence of Kissinger. And then I really thought no more about it. I shouldn't stop thinking about these previous administrations before my country fell to fascism, before anything like this was possible. Foreign policy in the United States in 2025 is being conceived, mapped out, and conducted by one man, a convicted Queen's fraud and rapist, Donald Trump. And he is only doing it for personal gain. That's it. He does not care about the rest of it. He doesn't care about bombs going off in Chicago ports. He doesn't care about any of that. He just cares about personal gain. And he's doing it all himself. He doesn't have a State Department. He doesn't have a Secretary of State. Doesn't have any advisors of any kind. He's just doing whatever he feels like. So knowing that that's happening on the world stage now makes reading books like this weird, decidedly weird. It'd be different if it were a different country. But it's still technically the same country. Even though we arrest and kill judges now, even though we arrest and kill citizens now, even though we underwrite concentration camps on foreign soil, and within 9 months we will underwrite them on American soil. It's not the same country in any effective sense, but it is still technically the United States of America. It feels weird, though. President Nixon would have no position anywhere in the administrations in Washington that are going to apply from here on out. They wouldn't want him. They would deport him. So this was kind of weird to read, but I liked it. I liked it. I thought it showed a lot of good judgment. I don't know if I'll be writing about it or not. I think I may be, when it comes to Zabig, I might be significantly, let's just say, helping a friend to write about it, which I often think precludes me from writing about it. I don't know, maybe it doesn't. Then we have, again, I'm going through these authors. This is another Lou Archer book. This is The Way Some People Die by Ross McDonald. These old mass market paperbacks often have his first name, Ross McDonald. Then he just gets shortened to Ross McDonald. And this is a seedy book. This is a really seedy book. He doesn't always do that in the Lou Archer novels. Often there's sunlight in a Lou Archer novel. And Lou Archer, the character, the Sam Spade type character in these books, resolutely focuses sunlight, even when he himself is as the phrase goes, going down these mean streets. He often has a light on him. He doesn't really in this book. And that was weird. That was a weird refraction of what's going on. I'm not reading the Lou Archer novels in order, and maybe I should, because maybe he grows out of that. But I enjoyed this even so. But God, you feel like you want to take a bath when you're done with it. It's a really violent, seedy book. Okay, then we can finish up with a book that I am reading. I don't often do that on this channel. I do nothing but read, and I read really fast, and I have a lot longer in my day to read than most people do. So when I'm talking to you, I'm not reading a book at the moment. I don't have a book on the go. I read it, and I'm done with it. And then I talk to you about it, or I haven't read it yet, and I tell you that I want to read it, and then I get to it, and I read it in one sitting, and then I'm done with it, and I talk to you about it. It's not often that I have the feeling of that I am reading a book, but this one I am reading, because it's 4 volumes long, and they're not short volumes. This is the Cambridge History of the Holocaust, which mercifully I have as ebooks, so I don't have to worry about the physical things coming in the mail. If they came in the mail, that would be wonderful, but where would I put them? I can only imagine. I've been reading these multi-volume, these hugely long Cambridge histories this year. This is the third one that I've read, third set that I've read, and I am definitely working on it. I could not read this all at once. Not even if I devoted all the time to it, I wouldn't want to. It's such a relentlessly grim subject where in the volume that I'm reading now, the machinery is gearing up and learning what it can do, and learning how little resistance it will get, learning how open it can be and how little resistance it will get when everyone involved in the machinery is assuming they will meet huge amounts of resistance. We're rounding up people without any due process, and it's pretty obvious that no one's ever seeing them again. So surely there are going to be lots of protests. There's going to be lots and lots of protests. And time and again, in the volume that I'm reading, the people who are behind the machinery are sharpening it specifically because they're not getting resistance. So you can understand why I wouldn't want to read 4 volumes of this, just one after another after another. I'd be popping down murder mysteries anyway. But it's excellent. It really will be. It really will be something like the final word on this subject when I'm finally done with it. If the other volumes hold true. God, though, if this first volume is hard to read, I can just imagine what it's going to be like when this was a fully fledged mechanical operation, when it had its own budget and its own code words and its own dedicated staff and wasn't groping anymore. Oh God. I mean, I've read an enormous number of books on this subject, but this is going into such granular detail. Those volumes are going to be even harder than usual. But anyway, we'll end on a very grim note. Sorry about that. We'll end on a very, very grim note. Is there anything lighter that I can end with? No? Oh, yes. This. I found this in a little free library. This Old Man. Which is a collection of essays on being really old. The author finds himself suddenly really old. And it's a new world. I read these pieces as they were coming out, and this, I found this in a little free library, and I'm happy to find it. Because they're very eloquent. They're not syrupy, and yet they're also not overly, tough guy brusque. They're little dispatches from a weird land, a land the author genuinely never thought he would reach. So it's going to be a joy to reread them all. That's another one that to be read. I haven't read that yet, but I've read all the pieces in it. But I haven't read it as a book, and I have a feeling that probably on a part of the author's mind, he was shaping it as a book. So it's probably going to be a delight to read. But anyway, there you go. This is a slightly grim old age. This is a slightly happier note than 4 volumes on the Holocaust. Oh my God. But that's it for my Friday reads. Kind of Friday reads. I could go on, but I'd love to know what you're doing. Of course, when it comes to Friday reads, how was your reading week? Mine was fraught. I did a lot of reading, but I was doing it to compensate for other things. Sickbed reading, which you might get a lot more of it done, but you'd much rather you didn't. So I had a good reading week, a very good reading week, but it wasn't a particularly happy reading week. What about you? In the Northern Hemisphere here, we are inching closer and closer to summer. Is that making you feel more like reading or less like reading? And what are you reading? How is the progress? Have you knocked anything off since last week? Anyway, I'd love to hear it. I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you all soon. Thank you, BookTube.